The night pressed close to the Great Pyramid of Meereen, a velvet suffocation of heat and ash and the briny breath of the bay. The braziers on the terrace guttered and hissed as a wind came crawling off the water. It carried the city's polyglot noises into the quiet where Tyrion Lannister had learned to make peace with himself. He stood at the parapet with a cup of something that had the color of rubies and the taste of old socks, and he pretended, for the sake of habit and memory, that it was the good red of the arbor. "Your face when you drink that," Varys said from the shadows, silk soft and amused. "It's as though the cup is confiding its misdeeds to you. Then I wish it would get to the part where it confesses to being wine." Tyrion drank again. The liquid refused to improve. "It will make the rest of your tale go down easier." Varys's slippers whispered over the tiles. Below them, the city purred. Hawkers still arguing, a cartwheel rattling over broken stone. The distant clatter of dice spilled into a bowl. "I've had a whisper from across the narrow sea," the spider murmured, as if the wind itself might carry it away. "Two, in fact. The first concerns our little ships and their larger quarry. The Greyjoys have been seen beyond the stepstones, and we will probably live long enough to regret it," Tyrion said, and emptied the cup. He set it down with exaggerated care on the parapet, as if it might shatter his calm. "What's the second?" "The second," Varys said, so gently that Tyrion's stomach remembered fear, "concerns King's Landing. Across the narrow sea." Those two words were a chord that hummed in Tyrion's bones. He felt the old shape of streets in his mind, alleys that kinked like broken fingers, the smell of warm bread and stable filth, the bells of the great September of Baelor when they took a notion to ring, cobbles slick with rain, the scrape of his father's voice, his mother's absence, the taste of salt and copper and wine. He looked at Varys, and the eunuch looked back at him with a gaze as mild as milk. "You will not like it," Varys said quietly. "Then by all means," Tyrion said, "don't keep it to yourself." Varys folded his hands. "My birds tell me that the alchemists have been busy, busier than is proper, that there is a smell in the tunnels beneath the city, a certain, how do they put it? A sour sting that lays in the nose and bites at the eyes. They say, some of them, those who know the smell, that it is wildfire. They say fires are primed in places where fires should not be. They say, my lord, that there is kindling under sanctity." The wind faltered. Tyrion felt something settle in his chest with the weight of an old dread. "When?" he asked, and did not recognize his own voice. "The trial," Varys said. "The Queen Mother is to be tried in the great September of Baelor at first light. Loras Tyrell's penitence will precede her. The High Septon has been clear. His followers have sung about it in the streets." "That fool," Tyrion said, and his mouth was dry. He did not mean the High Septon. He saw again the glimmering green umbrellas of flame blooming on the Blackwater, the way the night had turned to glass when the king's hand had forced a city to the brink of madness. He had used wildfire himself but to shape the field to terrify a fleet. He had not put it under the hearts of his own people. He had not been his sister. "It sounds like Cersei." "It does." Varys regarded him. "It sounds very like Ares as well." The word broke the cocoon of heat. Tyrion could feel the cold of some other night, the day his brother had told him what it had cost to be called Kingslayer. Jaime had killed a king to save a city, and had been loved for neither act. Jaime, who knew what wildfire did to flesh, to stone and bone and air, who had watched it soak a man's clothes from the inside when a jar broke on his belt. Jaime would understand this. Varys was already holding out parchment. "I have a ship in the bay, swift and dark. She can make the mouth of the Blackwater before dawn." "Ravens?" Tyrion heard himself ask. "Ravens cannot cross the sea," Varys said, apologetic. "But a ship can carry a letter, and a letter can carry a thought, if it is written with enough wit." Tyrion took the parchment. The paper rasped under his thumb. Varys's hand, even in the heat, was cool. "You should have told me earlier. I learned it earlier only by minutes." "Tyrion." Varys's voice had no silk now, no courtiness, only a man's urgency. "If I am wrong, we will have been careful. If I am right, We have one night to keep a city from turning to green glass. He wrote by the heaviest of the braziers, where the light would lay flat on the page and not dance like a lunatic. The quill scratched and paused. He was careful, very careful, to choose the words that would fit in the door that only two men could see. Brother, you have been called Kingslayer for half your life, and it has never been fair. Tonight, there is a king who might be saved without a murder. The smell you would recognize. Pine and eggs gone bad. The taste in the back of your throat that says, run, is in the cellars beneath the great September. Our sister would not stoop to kneeling before the ragged godman, and she has never loved any city but the one in her head. She would see the one we lived in burn before she wept. Do not let her become what you were named for killing. Speak to Helene of the alchemists if you can, forthwith. Bring sand, not water. Keep the boy far from windows and bells. The tunnels under Visigna's hill are older than our house, and more cruel. There will be boys in them, carrying knives that are not their own. There will be candles in places where candles should not be. You once told me you killed a king to stop him burning a city with wildfire. I did not thank you then. Consider this belated thanks, and a request to prove yourself again without a blade through a back. Tyrion. He stared down at the page until the ink dried like blood at the edges of the letters, and then he folded it with slow care and sealed it with a lump of wax pressed by his signet. Lannister, despite everything. A lion in scarlet that would mean something once it was seen in the right hands. Will he believe it? Varys asked. He will believe it because it is me, Tyrion said, and discovered that to be true. And because he knows our sister. Varys took the letter. He moved with a swiftness that belied his flesh, a gliding. He was gone before Tyrion's next breath, a suggestion of movement and the whisper of a slipper on stone, and the terrace felt emptier even though it was the size of a small courtyard. Tyrion poured himself another measure of the sock-colored wine and did not drink it. He set it down and put his palms flat against the warm stone of the parapet and felt, across a sea and a world, the city of his making. He did not pray. He had never found a god who liked him. The river took them in with indifference. Jaime Lannister watched the oars bite and lift, bite and lift, bite and lift. The spray beating on the black hull and the lower boards whispering with a speed that made the dockmaster's men scramble out of the way and swear. Somewhere in the half-light before dawn a bell had started. He could hear it in the bones of the city, the pulse of it, and he thought for an instant that he had ridden into the past. Bells for battle, bells for fire, bells for kings. The letter had found him at the Rosby Road 2 hours before that. Handed to him by a child with ink on her fingers and a tuft of hair missing from the back of her head. She had blinked up at him and said a name that was not his and run. The wax was stamped with a lion. It had looked like blood. He had broken the seal with his thumb and read at a canter. At the third line his mouth went dry. He had been 22 years old when he'd opened Aerys' chest and heard a man die like a bell broken with an axe. It did not sound like a bell, actually. It sounded like a sack of meat being emptied on the floor. The smell afterward was metal and piss and the thing in the air when you knock two flints together. A warning of fire. Sir. Bronn had reined up beside him, sainted banner Frey still tied half-heartedly at his saddle. You look like you've just swallowed a red ant. Rally the men, Jaime had said, and his voice had been someone else's. Straight to the Alchemists' Guild, then to the hill. Guac seradam. Wake any captain with more wit than beer in his belly. Quietly, and send a boy to the Red Keep with a message for Lord Kevin. No bells. Not until I say, by the King's grace and my command as Lord Commander. Quietly, Bronn's grin had been all teeth. We're about to go creeping under the gods' skirts, then. Under their cellars, Jaime had said, and put his heels to his horse. Now the skiff bumped the steps like a hound nosing a familiar door. Jaime jumped out before it steadied, hit the slick stone, and kept moving. His hand found the pouch at his side without thought. Sand, the letter had said. Sand, not water. In the lantern light the oarsmen were shadows with throats, gosling pale and dully surprised to see a lord leap when he might wait to be born. Bronn followed, the graceful half-limp of a man whose body had acquired more scars than it cared to recount. A knot of red and gold-cloaked guards clustered like a clot. Beyond them, the city loosened itself from darkness and stretched, indifferent to kings and queens. The alchemist's guild stank even when it slept. Haleen the pyromancer came with the dawn already in his beard, white as wax, hands shaking as he fumbled the latch. His pale eyes went round as eggs when he saw Jaime. "My lord, Lord Commander. What an honor at this hour." "You know who I am," Jaime said. "Tell me what you've given and to whom." "My lord." The old man's confusion was real. Then he read the air, the line of soldiers behind Jaime's shoulders, bronze expression like a knife leaning on its whetstone. His mouth worked. We were requested to recontainer certain old stores, my lord, in consultation. By order." "Whose order?" Haleen's throat moved. "The Queen Mother's steward, Qyburn, with certain patronage and assurances. My lord, I swear by my order that the jars are safe, safer than safe, as Wildfire is capable of being." "As a sleeping adder," Bronn muttered. "Where?" Jaime demanded. Haleen's eyes skittered. Well. He swallowed. Not in the guild house. I have my pride. The old stores are, of course, distributed beneath the city in ways that predate my memory. Your very father's policies permitted us to retain maps of. Spare me the history. The September. Jaime's voice was iron. Is there wildfire beneath Visenya's hill? Haleen's silence spoke. He wrung his hands. My lord, what is done with jars is not my order's doing. We make, we mix, we bind. We do not. Visenya's hill, Bronn said with an unhelpful cheerfulness. That's the answer I heard. Haleen's eyes filled with tears. My lord, the glass candles are a myth and a blasphemy. But if I could light one now to undo what madness men make of wisdom. Get me into your cellars, Jaime said. Bring sand and leather. Anyone who touches a candle with a naked hand answers to me. Bronn, take a wedge of men by the southern steps. Ser Adam by the northern. No torches. Lanterns with shutters only. If you see flame, you smother it. Not with water. With sand, with cloak, with your own body if you must and if there is time. And if you live through it, I'll make you all knights. Ser, Bronn said. You do remember we're fighting for the city, yes? Not to roast in it. Jaime drew breath, which tasted like old stone and something sour. It was the imp, he said. He did not know why he said it, but it steadied the men. Steadied him. My brother warned me. That is reason enough for me. The tunnels under Visenya's hill had been built for men like Jaime. They were too low, too mean, full of the past breathing within them. The lantern's shutters made a little cone of brittle yellow. Beyond it, the dark did not wait, pressed back. The smell was unmistakable once you knew it. Not the stink of a dung heap or a midden. The oranges and rot of a fruit cart gone bad. Something peppery that prickled behind the eyes. Blackwater ghosts woke in his blood. Pawprints of rats marked the dust where no rat should have ventured if it had known what slept here. They found the first candle like a tooth in a jaw. It dripped in an alcove where a statue of some long-crumbled king had been put to sleep with rags around his eyes. The wick had licked so low that the little blue flame was a bead. Beneath it, the thread ran away into the dark like a spider's scrawl, into a cracked tile that wasn't a tile at all, only a shell to disguise the fuse's mouth. Sand, Jaime said, and 3 men moved as one. Haleen had taught them on the run. The leather first to smother the gulp of air, then a careful press with sand. Do not blow, do not pat, do not think of fanning. Think instead of laying your mother's hand over a crying babe's mouth. Bronn's own hands were steadier than they had any right to be, and that cheered Jaime in a perverse way. The flame guttered under the leather and turned the air into a tight throat, then disappeared with a sound like a man being gently strangled. More, Jaime said. There will be more. There were. The little beads of flame winked at them from cracks and shelves and corners like the eyes of something buried that had decided to wake. Twice they heard voices and went still. Twice the voices were the whispers of water that wasn't water, of the city's bowels complaining. Then a human voice, true, with a reedy saintliness. "Lancel. 7 above, look where you put your feet," Bronn hissed, but Jaime had already moved toward the sound. They found Lancel 2 bends on, where Qyburn's little knife boys had led him like a goat and then opened him like a wineskin. Blood slicked the stones. The boy, no, not a boy. Lancel had once been a boy, and then he'd been a fool and a penitent. Now he was a man with a wound. Floundered toward a candle whose wick was almost a parasite of ember. He saw Jaime and tried to shave a smile out of his teeth. "Ser, ekovt. Ser Jaime. There was a child. I thought he ran." "Hush," Jaime said, and knelt, and the stink of wildfire was all through him like a remembered fever. He pressed a cloth to Lancel's side with his left hand, and the boy's eyes flinched, went glassy, then steadied on Jaime's face with a terrible hope. "Hold that hard. Do not let go. If you let go, I will leave you here under all the gods you care to name, and when I come back it will be to sweep you up with a broom." Lancel choked a laugh that was blood. "My sins," he whispered. "Aye. Later," Jaime said. "Bronn. On it." Bronn had already moved. He took the leather from a guard whose hands shook, laid it over the wick like a lover's palm. Sand. A breath held in 100 chests. The flame died again. They traced the thread, found the jar. Jaime crouched in front of the thing, green and fat and patient, and felt the city above them poised on it. He had cut a king's throat to keep a city from becoming fire. Now he must press his hand on a candle and save it again. "Gather," he said, "as many of these as you can reach. Carefully, slowly. No one runs. No one sweats. You sweat, you drip, it finds a spark. We all wake the mother in her worst mood." "You're a poet when the world's ending, aren't you?" Bronn muttered. "Do as he says," Haleen put in hoarsely. "And thank your king's good hand for thinking to bring sand, stupid creatures that you are." They worked until the lantern's oil ran low, until the air seemed to congeal in their throats, until Lancel mewed like a cat with each breath and still held the cloth against his side with a fanatic's clench. Twice more they found candles. Twice more the leather went down. The sand hissed softly. The flame died. By the time they reached the final bend, the fuse there was blackened and hot to the eye. It took the leather and the sand and prayers Bronn swore he didn't know before it stopped glowing. At last they stood in a chamber that had not seen the light of any god in 100 years, where the jars drowsed like a flock of poisonous eggs. Haleen wept openly. Jaime counted. He did not want to know the number. It would live inside him anyway, like the sound in the throne room when a sword met kingflesh. "Get them out," he said. "To the guild house. You will never put them beneath a holy place again. If you are commanded to do it, send to me first. If I am not here, send to my uncle. If he is not here, burn your own house down before you let another man tell you to light a candle in a cellar." Haleen nodded like a broken bird. "Ser Jaime?" Lancel gasped, and Jaime realized he'd been saying the boy's name as if it were a prayer. He crouched again. "Be still," he said. "You will live if you hold another hour. Can you?" Lancel's eyes filled with tears. "It was the Queen Mother," he whispered. She told me before I put on the sack that she had burned to become clean, that the city would love her once the flames had burned it to the truth." His hand, slick as a fish, clutched at Jaime's wrist. "Forgive me, cousin." "Aye, if you confess," Jaime said. "Do it to the man in the rags who calls himself God, or do it to me. I am not so easily fooled." Lancel started to sob. Jaime pressed the cloth harder and heard the boy's breath hiss like a doused fuse. "Hush," he said again, softer. He looked at Bronn. "Get him up." 2 men under his arms. "If he faints, let him. But he comes out. If he dies, I'll kill you." "That logic," Bronn said, "is why I still work for you." But he was already lifting. Lancel moaned and went loose as wet linen. Bronn swore at him with a strange tenderness, and they began to move. The bells did not ring when they should have. In the nave of the great September of Baelor, The light came down in sheets from the high windows and made the moats look like a host of invisible, mindless creatures hovering between the white marble floor and the painted gods. Marjorie Tyrell stood with her hands folded as if in prayer and watched the old men of the faith and the ragged man in his rough-spun smile at one another across politics that had learned to wear sanctity. She had smelled it when she came in. Not the smell of incense and old stone polished by knees, but a wrongness that sat at the back of the throat like a cat with its claws in your tongue. Twice now she had glanced toward the pillars and the shadows at their feet. Twice she had seen nothing but the slow shift of dust. She had received a note late the night before, a scrap of parchment pushed under the door of her chamber after the last of the women had gone and the last of the watch had pretended not to hear the sobbing in the other rooms. No signature, no crest, only a line. Keep your king from the bells. Keep your brother from the fire. Marjorie had not been fool enough to show it to the High Septon. She had burned it herself, watched the ink curl into darkness and then powder. But she had sent an old woman she trusted, the one who had nursed her mother's sister's boy when he had the flux, to the kitchens and the cellars. The woman had returned with eyes like two olives in a jar. There is a smell, she had said, like the stuff they use to set torches to strike at a touch. Marjorie had smiled and kissed her cheek and told her she was useful. Then she had gone to her brother, where the faith had kept him smiling like a pale saint, and she had held his hand through iron bars and said, "You will confess and you will come home and you will plant roses. Do you understand me?" He had looked through her at something Marjorie could not see and said, "Home is not for men like me, sister. Home is a story they tell so the bread goes down easier. It will be bread and honey," she had told him with her sweetest smile, and felt the fissure open beneath her feet. Now, in the September, the sun made a rainbow out of a saint's painted robe. Loras knelt. He had been given a clean tunic and his hair had been combed and he looked like a dream of a Tyrell boy, all grace and kindness. The ragged man spoke. People murmured. There were no bells. The air pressed the wrong smell up into Marjorie's sinuses until she wanted to sneeze out of fear. "Your Grace," the High Septon said, and his voice carried as if the gods themselves cupped their hands to it. "We thank you for your courage. We look to the Queen Mother next, that she may accept the judgment of the seven and be clothed in their light." The proper thing was to curtsy. Marjorie did it without thinking. Then she lifted her head and said, in a voice she had used since she was 15 and learned the weight of a hall with 100 eyes in it, "Where is the Queen Mother?" "On her way." The High Septon smiled like a shepherd who sees his lambs in a neat line. "It is not for us to question the lateness of believing women. It is for the king to question where his mother is," Marjorie said before she could stop herself. She heard the echo of her own courage bounce off the gods' faces and come back to her with a squeak. "If the bells do not ring, it is because someone has told them not to." "Your Grace," the man said with infinite patience, "the bells are a worldly device. The gods need no brass to move them." The smell swelled. The moats hung. Marjorie felt it as surely as she'd felt a horse about to shy under her seat. Something would break. It was only a question of whether she would break with it. "Lancel is not here," she said, and watched the High Septon's face be, for one instant, a man's uncertainty. "Your Purity's sword is not here. He serves the seven with more zeal than breath. Why is he not at your right hand now?" "His zeal," the man said, "is the answer." He tilted his head, listening to the silence where bells should have been. "And the gods do not mislay those who carry their light." Marjorie took a breath that hurt. "Lord of Light," she thought with a flash of wickedness that felt like survival. "If you're listening, pretend you love us now." The doors at the west end opened. Through them, like a tide that had remembered its business, came a slice of brightness and the tower of a Lannister banner. Jaime Lannister's face made a straight line. Beside him limped a man whose face Marjorie had once seen across a tilt yard with a jest in it and a naked blade. A sellsword who had taken on the shape of a knight because the world liked its iron in pretty clothes. Behind them came city guards with faces like men who had eaten the season's last apple and found a worm in it. Between two soldiers they carried Lancel Lannister like a broken bundle. The September gasped. The High Septon's face smoothened into something that was not a smile and not a scowl, but a thing that would fit either. "You profane," he began. "No," Jaime Lannister said, and his voice was so tired it made Marjorie's heart twist for him without her consent. "No profaning today." He looked up the nave at the ragged man as if he were measuring a distance for a throw. "Your Grace," he said to Marjorie, and bowed with a courtesy so precise it cut. "To the High Septon, this is not your sanctum. It is a stone house where men put their knees and their fears. Today it was almost a tomb." He gestured. "Qyburn, acting in the name of the Queen Mother, set wildfire beneath your holy house." He lit the fuses with the hands of children. He arranged a music of bells and flames. He might have made a god of himself in green. He did not, because we pulled the candles out of his fingers. Marjorie could hear it ripple through the Sept like a wind. People's bodies moved without illing it, the shift of a shoulder, the draw of air that might become a scream. The ragged man did not move at all. He looked as if someone had put him on the wrong stage. "Wildfire," he said, as if tasting the word. "The substance of kings. The madness of them. It has no place under the eyes of the seven." "It had a place under them this morning," Bronn said helpfully, and the High Septon's gaze flicked to him with contempt. "No need to thank me. I'm a simple soul. I just like my skin not blistered." Jaime ignored him. He looked only at the High Septon. "Lancel will give testimony. He has lost a great deal of blood, but not all his knowledge. The alchemists can identify the jars." He paused. "Lord Kevin is on his way here with 20 men. You will admit him, and you will not speak to the crowd until he has spoken to you. This is the house of the gods," the High Septon said quietly, "not the kennel of lions." "Then you should have protected it better," Marjorie said. Before her caution could put fingers on her lips, she stepped forward. "You will let my brother leave with me now, Holiness. He has confessed to you." She lied with a smile that was only a breath away from truth. She had made it so by saying it enough. "He will go home to the Reach and plant gardens and pray. He is no use to your spectacle. Keep him, and you keep a lamb before wolves." The ragged man's eyes were not unkind when he turned them on her. "They are wolves you themselves a bet, your grace. Those wolves," Marjorie said sweetly, "just kept your flock from being roasted for their sins and yours." He blinked. Men like him did not often hear a girl speak like that in front of gods. He opened his mouth. The doors behind Marjorie opened again with that particular clamor that said not only soldiers but purpose. Lord Kevin Lannister came in at a pace just shy of a trot, his face gray with either fury or lack of breath. Behind him was Pycelle, beard trembling, eyes bulging, and the sight of both of them alive took Marjorie by surprise, such that she did not know she had feared for them until the fear softened. Kevin bowed his head a fraction toward the altar and then brought his gaze hard to the High Septon. "My lord," he said without title, "the Queen Mother will not appear today. She is taken into custody for questioning concerning a capital crime. The king has commanded that the trial be delayed. He has also commanded that the faith's militant arms return to their septs to await disbandment." The words should not have made that sound. They made it anyway. The faith militant shifted like a shoal of fish. The High Septon's smile grew, which was the only sign he gave of surprise. "The king commands?" "The king commands," Kevin repeated. "He is the law. You are not. If you dispute that, we will have dispute." The ragged man's eyes flicked to the people, to the faces. He had always known how to use faces. Marjorie watched him choose and discard and choose. Then he bowed back. "We stand ready to hear the king," he said in a tone so humble it grew a thorn. "We stand ready to return to our places, though we will not renounce what has been won for the city." "Something has been won today," Marjorie said brightly, with a sweetness that did not hide its acid. "It was not won by you." He said nothing. She saw him look past her, to Loras, to the pale line that had been the curve of his mouth when he smiled at a crowd. Then the High Septon raised his hands and spoke a prayer that sounded like a retreat, and the faith militant began to move backward along the aisles. uncertain and angry and obedient. Marjorie went to her brother. She put her arm under his and felt the bone of it through his good tunic. He leaned into her as if heaven were in her shoulder. "We're going home," she said, and he murmured, "There is no home." Into her hair like the answer of a rainless well. She smiled, and the smile held because she knew how to make it do so. "You will make one," she said, and turned him toward the doors. Cersei Lannister had chosen her gown with a care that would have pleased her mother once. It was black, so black it drank the candlelight where it touched it. It had iron stitched into it, threads finer than hair, lines like thorns crescents beneath the cloth, a weight that sat her spine straight and made her feel her edges. In the mirror she looked like a queen the way little girls believed in queens, hard and dark and sharp. She held a cup. Its stem bit the meat of her fingers. The wine in it tasted of stones. The child at the great window had gone to fetch a sweet and had not returned. The cardinal on its rope outside clicked its beak and looked at her with one furious eye, then the other, the way birds did. In the distance, a bell began and did not continue. The city breathed under her like an animal in sleep. She had dreamed of green, not a fair, soft green, not a meadow or a silk, a violent green, a triumphant green, a green that ate other colors. She had dreamed of heat and afterward quiet. She had dreamed of the ragman shivering once and then being a stain she could wipe with her thumb. She had dreamed of the Tyrell girl screaming. Not long, just a note. The door opened. Qyburn stood in it with his mouth arranged into an apology that had never existed in him. There was a brown smear on his collar. It might have been wine. "Your Grace," he said. A hitch. The word was foreign in his mouth. Cersei looked back at the window. What kind of hitch? Ser Jaime has been proactive. He has removed certain elements from beneath the September. He has made dramatic claims. The city is in a mood that is not conducive to fireworks. Cersei stood for a very long time without discovering she had stood. The cup in her hand was empty. When had she emptied it? She set it down and was pleased to see that her hand did not shake. "The city is a child," she said. "It can be smacked into good humor." "On most days," Qyburn agreed. He Ned his head slightly. A shape moved just behind him and then became still again. The suggestion of a mountain in a place where a mountain should not be. "Today, alas, there is your brother, and Lord Kevin. The king has sent to disarm the faith." Cersei's mouth remembered laughter and did a poor job of it. "The king," she said. "My son, that sweet boy, he will send the faith home? And then what, Qyburn? He will visit me in my chamber with a ribbon in his hand and tell me I have been a naughty girl. I would not presume to guess the nature of maternal correction," Qyburn said, polite as a physician offering an unwelcome dose. "I would suggest, Your Grace, that you not go to the September." "I was never going to the September." It pleased her to say something true. She went to the window because there was nowhere else to go and because if she did not move she would do something that required undoing. The cardinal clicked at her again. "I was going to watch." Qyburn's silence was a small, damp room. "And now?" she asked. The city stretched to the water. Roofs crowded together like 1,000 little houses whispering. She hated it. She loved it. It depended on the angle. "Now Ser Jaime is coming here," Qyburn said. "With soldiers. Ser Robert is prepared to receive them." She turned back. The shape in the corner made time feel thick around it. She had never been afraid of it. That was the point of it. She was afraid now of the way it stood, perfectly still, a waiting done with a monstrous obedience. "He will not hurt Jaime," she said. "Ser Robert will obey you," Qyburn said. "He will protect you from all enemies." "I said," Cersei said, because the air needed to be cut by something. "He will not hurt Jaime." Qyburn opened his hands in a gesture she had used herself once. Regret and inevitability raised in symmetrical fingers. "It would be best if you allowed me to manage the reception." "My brother will not hurt me either," Cersei said, and she heard in her voice the ghost of a woman she had been at 15, wild and fearless and certain of a twin as of a mirror. "He loves me too much to do what would make him a hero." Qyburn did not say that heroes were all dead men. He was too kind for that in his fashion. The door opened again without a knock. Ser Robert Strong moved first, the way a moving hill moves. Behind him came Jaime, with a face like a statue deciding whether to frown. The soldiers behind him filled the room with the metal of their breath. "Cersei," Jaime said. "Jaime," she answered, and smiled because she knew how to turn a mouth into a weapon. "You look thin. Are you eating?" "Not much." He looked at Ser Robert. "Stand down." The big thing did not move. If it had had a face that could change, Cersei would have said it smiled. "You will not," Qyburn began. Jaime did not look at him. "Qyburn, be silent," he said, and it was the kind of command that made people obey because it never occurred to them not to. "Cersei, come away." "I am away," she said, and looked at the black gown in the window's light. "Away from the fools, away from the smell of unwashed holiness, away from that girl's eyes, away from the life you and I were supposed to have. Come with me," he said, and she heard the break under the words like old wood under the boot. "No," she lifted her chin. "This is my city. It is Tommen's city," Jaime said, "and today it was almost no one's." "You stopped it," she said. She tasted astonishment like a small fruit in her mouth, tart and bright. "You stopped it." "I stopped you," he said. "It was a knife, but it was a dull one." She let it sit. "I should thank you," she said sweetly. "Shall I? Thank you, dear brother, for making me live to see another day of hypocrisy. Thank you for leaving that rag thing breathing. Thank you for keeping the girl with her tidy little curls alive to make eyes at my son." Jaime closed his eyes. "I am here to take you into custody. Am I a thief, that you speak so to me?" Cersei set her hand on the windowsill and looked beyond him. The cardinal fluffed its feathers and rotated its furious eyes. "Am I to be bundled out the back like a kitchen slut with fat lungs and a knife?" Jaime opened his eyes. "I love you," he said, and it was the truth, and it did not help either of them. "And I am the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. I swore an oath. I cannot let you burn a city because you are afraid of kneeling. If you take me," Cersei said, and felt the weight of the iron threads, the way the gown held her up like a lover, "then your son will watch me dragged. He will watch them bear me again. He will remember it when he closes his eyes. Will you do that to him?" "I will keep you from becoming what I killed," he said. "I will do that to me." Qyburn's mouth was a thin line. "Ser Robert," he said quietly. "Protect the queen." "Ser Robert," Jaime said, without shifting his eyes from Cersei. "Protect the king." The room held its breath. The big thing, the rotted knight in his gilded shell, did not move. Cersei looked at its helm and felt something cold walk down the meat of her back. She had not thought she could feel cold today. "You see," she said to Qyburn, "he is his father's son. Am I?" Jaime said, and then to the beast quieter, "Stand aside." Ser Robert shifted. It was not much. It was the sound a rope makes when it accepts a new tension. Then, under that, something like a slow exhale. It moved the way a curtain moves when wind is on the other side of it. Took one step back. Qyburn's face changed. He had always enjoyed surprises that came without blood. This one did not please him. "If the king commands." "The king commands," said a small voice from the doorway, childish and brittle. Tommen stood there with a face that had learned more than it could carry in a single morning. He looked at his mother and did not run to her. He looked at Jaime and did not smile. He looked at Ser Robert and the things hot, dead bee. Wreath, and he said very carefully, "You will not hurt anyone." Ser Robert did not move in a way a man could see, but the room unclenched. "Mother," Tommen said, "please." Cersei did not hate him then. She could not. He had her eyes when he was afraid. She wanted to go to him and put her firm hand under his elbow and lead him away from the men with swords and the eunuch's eyes at a distance and the giant that smelled like rotten meat, away from all of it, to a place that had lemon cakes and laughter. There had never been such a place. She put her hands at her sides and stood straight. "I am the queen," she said. because words had to be placed somewhere, and did not resist when Jaime came to her and put his hand, warm, on her arm. Kevin Lannister made a court out of a room that had once been a guard's lounge. The table was stained with 1,000 cups. The benches had the polish of men's asses. He had a scribe pull up a chair in the corner and write what he said, whether or not it would be written elsewhere. Pycelle wheezed softly in the background like an old bellows. The business of the city occurs where it must, Kevin thought grimly, and the business today was stopping a madness from becoming a law. Tommen is king, he said. His word was given in the September by my mouth. The faith militant is to return to its cloisters pending disarmament. That will go poorly, Pycelle said, comforting in his predictability. They have tasted power. They have also tasted the smell of being turned to green smoke, Kevin said. They will do as they're told or be made to. We will not burn the city to teach them that. We will use bread and fear, as kings have always used bread and fear. What of Qyburn? Asked Ser Adam Marbrand, leaning on the back of a chair as if it were a horse he might ride into a fire. In custody, Kevin said. If he resists, he is to be killed. If he attempts to speak to any child, he is to be gagged. He will be tried for treason and meddling with forbidden arts. The Queen Mother? Pycelle mumbled. Her Grace. She will be tried by the law, not the faith, Kevin said. We will not deliver her to the Ragman's theater. We will not let trial by combat be invoked. I will ask the king to issue a prohibition on combat in all matters pertaining to treason and to the deaths of many. When he has done that, he will go to the September and pray with the common people, and he will go to the market and hand a loaf of bread to a baker's child. He will become a shape they love that is not the shape of a sword. You sound like my late brother when he was still interested in ruling, Pycelle said with unintentional venom. He would have approved of starving a city to feed it. Tywin would have hung a host of men today, Kevin said without rancor. There is hanging to do, not a host. Will you hang Cersei? Ser Adam asked, blunt as a blade left on the anvil. No. Kevin felt a weariness that started behind his eyes and seeped back into his skull. There is punishment and there is ruin. We need house and city. She will be kept where she cannot make mischief. The rock is not the worst place. She may scream at the sea and the gulls will answer. The faith, Pycelle fretted, will not like being closed out. They may go on not liking it, Kevin said evenly. We will offer them a concession. Loras Tyrell goes home to the Reach in the care of his sister. Under a vow, he will not take up arms again for a year and a day. The Tyrells will like that. The faith will dislike it and be made to like it. And when the dragon woman comes? Ser Adam asked, because good captains do not fail to study the horizon while the courtyard is burning. We will need more than bread and fear then. Then, Kevin said, we will have an army and a city that is not ash. We will have the Tyrells not mourning a daughter and a son. We will have a king who has put his hands in the hands of his people. And we will have the Kingslayer who is not a butcher standing before the court. Those are better tools than Wildfire. He wished he believed how steady his voice sounded. High gardens are made not only with stone but with people, and Marjorie built them wherever she went. In the afternoon, after Tommen had come to her with a face like a young birch in wind, she had put him in the shade and fed him sweet water and let his hands shake under the table with hers on them. In the evening she walked with her brother around a little fountain that had not worked since the last summer without siege, and Loras told her about a bee that had once crawled into a rose and died there because it did not know how to be content with only one sweetness. That was a thing he would have said before. It snuck back through him like a vine through an old crack. She did not know yet whether to be glad. You will go home, she told him. You will wear hats like father and laugh at nothing and come inside with dirt on your knees. I used to want tournaments, he said. He looked at the dry bowl of the fountain. Now I think I should like to teach boys to wield a stick without hitting themselves. You will do both, Marjorie said cheerfully. You will be a terror with a white stick and a rose on your boot. You always make it sound so easy, he said. It is, you have me. I am very useful. He smiled at her then, and for a moment she saw the boy who had given his best doll to a maid's child because father had told him that charity was a kind of look on a face. Later, alone in her chamber, she let the smile go, fell off like a mask into her hands. She rubbed her eyes until lights danced in them. The city made its night noises through the shutters. There was still the sort of smell that no one forgot once they had met it. Faint now, first cousin to lamp oil, not pure, not a threat, but there like an aftertaste. She thought of the line of men carrying jars through tunnels as old as dragons, and she thought of the way High Septon had measured the air as if measuring it could make it behave. When the dragon woman comes, she said aloud to the empty room, we must be ready to kneel or not to kneel in such a way that it looks like our idea. She lay down on the bed and did not sleep because sleep would have brought her to the edge of a cliff and told her to jump. Tyrion did not sleep either. The galley came back early afternoon, sails like a gull's spread. The boy Varys had sent returned with the smell of salt and the cockiness of one who runs messages for men who make kings. He put a crumpled page in Tyrion's hand and grinned with every tooth he possessed. It was short. Brother, you were right. For once in your life I did as you told me. You may lord it over me when next we drink. I will see that you live long enough to do it. Tyrion read it 3 times and laughed the second. The laugh had something in it that had not been in his throat since he had been smaller even than he was now and had found a book at the bottom of a barrel that no one expected him to find. He poured the bad wine and this time it tasted like victory in disguise. Varys raised an eyebrow. I will take that as good news. The very best, Tyrion said, except that it preserves more enemies for us to have to deal with later. Which will require your wit, Varys said. Which is to say, your favorite pastime. Tyrion lifted the cup. To the brother who learned to be a hero again. To the queen who will have to learn humility or the inside of a cell. To the spider who can cross a sea and make it seem a stroll. Your flattery, Varys said, is becoming vulgar. It's the wine, Tyrion said, and drank for once without complaint. Shall we tell our queen that the city she is to rule still exists? We shall tell her that much, Varys said, and also that it has arms. The Tyrells have not lost a daughter and a son today. They will not be eager to throw in with Daenerys yet. They may make purchase of time. Time is her cheapest commodity, Tyrion said. She can pay with it. She can pay with fire. She can pay with the promise of a world where men like my father are ash on the wind. He looked toward the sea. It had the flat glare of a coin in a poor man's hand. She will need me, not for ships, for words. I suggest we sharpen them. The day they saw the Blackwater from the Dragon Queen's flagship, the sea was as docile as any cat in a lap. Tyrion stood just abaft the prow, his hair flattened by wind, and squinted at the shape of the city rising from the water's slick edge like a pile of toys set by a thoughtful child. The September of Baelor still wore its crown of domes. It shone. He felt a little ridiculous pang of pride. It is my city, he thought, as a man thinks of a dog he has paid to have does not bite his neighbors. You look, Missandei said behind him, as if you are measuring a dress to see whom it will fit. I am measuring a throat, Tyrion said. If it's wide enough to swallow the words we must say, they will not choke us. He turned. How does one explain to a queen that this place is not simply a lump of stone with a chair on it? That it is a sickness and a glory, a piece of music composed for thousands of hands and voices, none of whom ever agree on the tune. One says, Missandei said, that the people have not burned. One says that the queen who would reign over ash must now reckon with bread. Bread, Tyrion said, and fear. Daenerys came to the rail then as if the sea had made her out of itself and grown her from a wave. She wore no crown. She did not need to. Men had learned to see one even if it were not there. Her dragons sketched shadows on the water to port and starboard, contentful, curious. She rested her hands on the rail and looked without speaking. Then, it lives. It does, Tyrion said, for good and ill. The ill would have pleased me, she said, with a candor that was not cruel but simple. A destroyed city leaves fewer choices. A destroyed city leaves fewer citizens, Tyrion said, And fewer bakers, fewer soldiers, fewer old women to tell tales of their mother's sisters. It leaves a throne that stands in a room emptied of meaning. The men who remain in such rooms tend to talk to their swords. They are very dull. She smiled sidelong. And the good, Tyrion said, is that they have not become a story already. They are still able to be told something, if we tell it well. What do we tell them? That their king is a boy with a kind heart and that those are rare, Tyrion said. That his uncle loves him and that is rarer still. That the woman they hate would have burned them and will not be allowed to again. That the faith has been taught the lesson that swords are heavy. That the Tyrells still bake bread. That the Dragon Queen has crossed the sea, and that gives them a choice. Not much of one, she said, the corner of her mouth tilted. Do you think they will choose to keep their king? Some will. Some will keep him the way men keep a cat they have fed since kittenhood, with indulgence, with blind tolerance for its claws. Some will turn because they like the taste of change. Some because they expect you to hang the right people. Some because they are very tired. And the men in the Red Keep? Daenerys asked, quiet as a blade. What will they choose? Duty, Tyrion said, and did not let the ache in his mouth show. And love, never in equal measure. She nodded like a woman agreeing that the wind was wind. You will speak to your brother. If he will speak to me, Tyrion said, he will. And he will hate me for bringing the sea to his door. You did that long ago, she said, not unkindly. With letters. That, Tyrion said, is my sin. They met in a room that had never been intended for men with crowns to enter. The ceiling had a crack you could put 3 fingers in. The window was the kind that admitted air without light. Jaime came in with his H, and on the pommel of his sword because hands learn habits and prefer their own company. He was thinner, grayer at the edge. The line of him was still beautiful in the way a statue is beautiful even after rain rounds it. He looked at Tyrion and did not smile, but his face altered as if it considered it. You look well, Jaime said. You look as if you have slept less, Tyrion answered. They stood a moment in the middle of the room like 2 men who have found themselves in a chapel at the same time and are trying not to disturb the other. I am told, Jaime said, that your queen desires surrender. She desires a city without fire, Tyrion said, and a chair that will not cut her to ribbons. Chairs like that do not exist here, Jaime said. He came to the table and sat, and Tyrion felt some muscle in his chest unclench, as if something that had been about to break into a fight at a wedding had thought better of it. What will you take in exchange for not burning us? Doors, Tyrion said. Food, the possibility of a future, pledges that mean something, words you will keep. The city. That last one you cannot have, Jaime said. He rubbed his jaw. I am not being a poet. I am being dull. You cannot have what a boy cannot give. Tommen does not understand seating. He understands corners and puppies. He will listen to Marjorie, and she will tell him to smile and wave and sign. He will do it. He will mean it today. Tomorrow he will see a very old woman with a shawl, and she will ask him if the queen in black is allowed bread, and he will cry. None of this is fit for a negotiation. It is all of it fit, Tyrion said. We only pretend otherwise because it makes men feel like gods. We will take your smile and sign. We will take the disarming of the faith. We will take the dismissal of Qyburn from any post the law can name. We will take the Queen Mother out of the city. Where? The Rock. Tyrion let the word sit. She belongs to it. Jaime's mouth tightened. You will send me to be her jailer. I will send someone who will not love her, Tyrion said. If not you, then not you, but someone who will keep her in to keep the city out. He leaned in. I am not here with a threat. Dragons are threat enough. I am here with a promise, and you, of all men, know I keep those. Jaime looked at his face as if he would see the boy in it. I used to, he said, and then he snorted. Gods, listen to us sound like our father. We never do, Tyrion said, and the ease in that truth made them both breathe as if a weight had been lifted from their lungs. A knock at the door. Kevin entered without waiting for permission. The old man's shoulders were straight. His mouth a line learned from years of being spoken to by a brother who thought lines were the only necessary punctuation. He inclined his head to Tyrion, neither acknowledgement nor denial, a thing a soldier did when he did not know whether to arrest the man before him or give him bread. "You have a queen at your back," Kevin said. "I have a king at mine. How do we keep both alive?" "By not lying," Tyrion said. "By taking the choice from neither. By making surrender taste like something else. Not defeat. A change." Kevin's eyes narrowed. "You always liked dressing up a thing." "Things need dressing," Tyrion said. "Else men look at them and see only how naked they are." He took a breath. "My queen will not enter the city in armor. She will come with 3 commands. 1. That the faith be unarmed and the streets opened. 2. That Cersei Lannister be sent to Casterly Rock by nightfall. 3. That the banners of House Baratheon be lowered from the keep, and that the boy Tommen, by his own hand, raise no banner in their place." "Not yet." He held Kevin's eyes. "She will give bread, gold, pardon to those who disarm. She will not burn the September." "You know the power of that promise," Kevin said softly. "I wrote a letter that kept it from burning once," Tyrion answered. "I will write another." Jaime made a small, incredulous sound. "7 save me," he said. "You will forgive me for not appreciating a world where a scrap of parchment means more than my sword." "I much prefer it," Tyrion said. "It allows me to live." He looked down at his hands. They had ink on one nail, as always. He had thought he would outgrow that. "Will you speak for this to the boy?" "I will," Jaime said. "He will listen." "He will," Kevin said. "And then the Tyrell girl will tell him what it means. And then I will tell them both." He rubbed the bridge of his nose. "This city has not yet run out of days in which to be saved." He looked at Tyrion. "You did this. I don't know whether to praise you." "You can try not to hang me," Tyrion said, smiling without amusement. "That would be praise enough." Kevin's eyes went distant for a moment, as if looking at a ledger in his head. Then he nodded once, short and precise. "It would be good," he said. "If the boy grew up to be a man who could say he was saved twice in a week, perhaps he will remember it. And perhaps he won't," Tyrion said gently. "We cannot rule a city on perhaps." He pushed back from the table. "But we can start." The sun went down that day as if the city had been kind to it. The light slid over the domes of the September and laid a kiss like honey on them. At Maegor's holdfast, Cersei Lannister watched the sea take the coin of light and keep it. She was dressed in plain wool now. It made her look younger and older at once, as poverty does to anyone who has not suffered it. The guards were not cruel. Jaime stood to the side and did not look at her because he had learned that looking was a treason in certain lights. "Do you remember?" she said, after a long time in which the only thing that moved was the flag at the top of the King's Tower. "When we were little, and we hid in the tunnels under the rock and made our own kingdom out of spider webs and dust?" "I remember," he said. "We were good then," she said. "We would have been good if no one had told us we were lions. We would have been something," he said. "We might have been kinder." She turned her head. The last light caught in her eyes as if in a glass. It sharpened them. "Have you always suspected that you and I were wrong for this world?" "Yes," he said, and was surprised by how easy the word was. She looked back to the sea, and for once she did not raise a weapon out of a memory. "Tell Tommen," she said into the coming dark, "that he should learn to ride without hands. It will make him brave." "I will," he said. He did not ask her forgiveness for taking her hand and placing irons on it. He did not ask himself whether he would do it again. There was some peace in that. The great September of Baelor was full to bursting the day Daenerys Targaryen walked up its steps, not as conqueror with soldier at heel, but as a woman with her hair loose and a simple band around her brow. The faith sang. The devout murmured. The curious climbed on one another's shoulders to see. Marjorie Tyrell stood near the door, her hair arranged into dignity and her mouth into welcome, and Tommen beside her looked as if a very large, very affectionate dog had just decided to sit in his lap and call itself queen. Tyrion walked at Daenerys' shoulder like a small bad angel with better advice than any god. The High Septon waited at the top of the steps with a face so patient it could have been stone. "Your Grace," he said, "the gods do not know your name. We are here to teach it to them. They will learn it," Daenerys said, with the kind of smile that made men want to look for the nearest object to kneel on. "As I will learn theirs." Her voice carried into the nave. The people shifted. Tyrion felt the breath of the city against his cheeks. It had learned not to flinch at every sound. That was something. Marjorie stepped forward and put her hands in the Queen's. "Welcome," she said. "We have not met. We will be kind to one another in front of these faces. In front of others also," Daenerys said, and it was a promise in two directions. She put a hand briefly on Tommen's head. "Hello, little king." Tommen swallowed. "Hello," he managed. "You are very beautiful." "Thank you," Daenerys said gravely. She looked at the boy for a long moment and then at the painted mother over the altar. "If I were cruel, I would ask you to kneel." "I can kneel," Tommen said, eager to please in the way puppies are eager to please and children are when they are given a kindness they did not fear. "I can kneel for the gods." "Not for me," Daenerys said quietly. "Not yet." Tyrion watched the surprise ripple through the room like a string plucked on a lute. He saw the High Septon remeasure the chorus of his reply. He saw Kevin's shoulders loosen half an inch, and Jaime's mouth tilt, as if some part of him had expected barely sheathed steel and had found silk instead. He saw Marjorie's eyes narrow, calculating love for a city being balanced against ambition, and he did not dislike her for it. He saw, far back, a woman in a coarse shawl dab at her eyes with a dirty hem and smile with hope that had no politics. Bread was given that day and pardons. Swords were taken and bundled and tied with ribbon whose color meant nothing and therefore everything. Cersei's litter, plain wood with a curtain, went down to the docks at sunset, and the little procession that followed it said nothing. A boat put off into the evening, quiet as any poor fisher's child's craft. Somewhere, a cardinal clicked its beak twice and then sang once. The city, with its stinks and its stubbornness, held. That night, in a room with a crack in the ceiling and air that moved the wrong way, Tyrion poured wine that was not very good and tasted of honesty. He held his cup toward Jaime. "To letters," he said. Jaime touched his cup. "To letters." They drank. Neither of them said the word that hung between them. That word was mercy. They were not men who believed much in it. It had happened anyway. In the silence after, a bell rang. Not the wild, panicked clamor of warning the city had learned to fear. A slow, steady note, like a heart that had remembered its business. It went on in the warm dark, and the men in the room, and the women in 1,000 others, breathed with it, and the city did not burn, and the days ahead were white as uncut cloth. It would be dyed, in time, with blood and wine and tears and laughter, as all cloth in that city was. But for now it lay ready to be shaped, and that was a beginning.